Hello, Serena. Welcome to Mind Bloom. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you doing, Marina?
I am so excited to have you because we're going to be talking about suicide prevention, and that is so meaningful for Mind Bloom. So I can't wait to hear what you have to say about what you
Yeah.
do with Breaking Taboo. So, first off,
Well,
tell us what makes your mind bloom.
well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your show. I think Mind Bloom is a really great concept, and I love that question. It's also so nice to meet you, Marina, over the internet. And that question, Mind Bloom, it's just, I love it. I love it. What makes my mind bloom? Um, I think, first of all, as everyone knows, mental health. Mental health is a huge thing of what I'm a part of. I am a huge mental health advocate. And when I say mental health, I don't mean it in the sense where a lot of people automatically think mental illness.
Mhm,
That's not what I mean.
mhm,
Mental health does not necessarily mean mental illness. In fact, I always say, even in my nonprofit, let's concentrate on the health part of mental health.
mhm,
So we all have mental health. There's no one in the world that does not have mental health.
yeah,
It's just the health of our minds,
mhm,
right? And our psyche and our emotions and our brains. So I'm super passionate about that. So I would say that makes my mind bloom. Also, if I'm just to list off a few other things, creativity. I'm a big fan of creativity and being creative. Everything I believe comes from being creative and creation,
mhm,
including businesses, nonprofits, ideas, all of that.
mhm.
And I would say that right now, currently, I am in a very animal loving mood. So currently, what's making my mind bloom is watching animal videos, which I do all the time before I go to sleep. That's my little
Mhm,
happy before sleep ritual
mhm.
on Instagram. So yeah.
That's great. That's awesome. I'm so excited to hear more about Breaking Taboo. So tell me what it is. You're the founder. How did this idea come to be, and where is it at right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for asking. So Breaking Taboo is, I guess, my biggest passion project and also my mission. And literally, the mission of it is right there in the name, Breaking Taboo. So our aim is to break the taboo surrounding mental health and suicide prevention. And I always say, think of breaking taboo as an umbrella. Mental health is the tent of the umbrella, and suicide prevention would be the stem. And
Mhm.
why that is because most suicides can be prevented if we do treat the mental illness or mental health issues. Sorry, I don't even usually like to use the word mental illness, but the mental health conditions, if we do treat that, that is the first step at preventing suicide. And most suicides do stem as a result of underlying mental health conditions, with depression being the leading cause. So I think it's very important. They go hand in hand. I don't think, we can concentrate really on one without the other. And that's just my opinion. So that is what Breaking Taboo is all about. We serve to provide accessible education to the common public on everything having to do with mental health. So that can be anything from psychological disorders, as defined in the DSM, or it could even just be everyday coping mechanisms that we feel like would be beneficial to our audience, because again, mental health is everywhere. It's not something we can escape,
Yeah.
right? um, so yeah, so we're serving to do that, and we're also getting educational programs into schools. And I guess my biggest endeavor in all of this would be the documentary that started the whole thing. So the documentary actually came before the nonprofit did,
Hmm.
and the nonprofit kind of came as a response out of all of that. But I have a background in the film world, and unfortunately, what happened was, so my background's in psychology and film, and I've lost many friends to suicide. And one of the last friends that I had lost to suicide really impacted me. Like, it was really difficult on me, and I was really struggling myself. I would definitely say that I was in a depressed state myself, which, does happen with loss. And anyway, I had this light bulb idea of combining my background with film and psychology. And, I used to give seminars on suicide prevention, so I'm very well versed in suicide prevention techniques. And I thought of combining all of that, and I thought, wow, why not use the power of the media and film to educate people on these topics that I used to educate them on, but, instead of doing it one person at a time or one school at a time, why not be able to do it on a more mass scale? So that's how kind of Breaking Taboo started to come together. And that's, what we're continuously working on. So,
And
yeah.
what's the name of the documentary?
That's a funny question. Um, I would say honestly, the name is still in the works because I'm the type of person where some people, some artists like to create the name first, the title first. For me, if it doesn't come to me, if something doesn't come to me naturally, it's not meant to be. Like it doesn't sit. So I haven't found something that has sat quite yet. I'm still letting it ruminate. But because the documentary is still in production, I mean, we've had to put it on hold because of COVID, but because it's still in production, I know that when the time is right, it will come to me. But worst comes to worst, honestly, we'll just call it Breaking Taboo.
Yeah, exactly. I asked this question because I thought that the documentary was out, so I was going to look for it. So that's why I asked, what's the title? I
Oh,
hadn't
I see.
realized it's still in production, but I'll be looking forward to for it to be complete and out there for
Yeah,
all of us to see. At which point, maybe you can come back again. Uh,
absolutely.
and
Yeah, I would
we'll,
love to.
yeah, yeah. Oh, that's great. Um, so
Yeah,
go ahead.
interesting fact. I was just going to say the I actually found out myself during a production meeting. The average documentary takes 5.5 years to make. So, and that's the average. And there have been many that have taken 8 years,
Yeah,
13 years,
of
or
course.
whatever. So, yeah, so hopefully we will be done ours soon.
Right. Right. There
Yeah.
there are so many hurdles. I can only imagine from financial to
Hmm.
staff and resources. Now you had COVID. And then I guess the usually documentaries are also just so personal and they're just such an intimate account of the author most of the
Hmm.
times that I'm sure it's needed. This time of just brewing the ideas and the montage and the editing is probably needed. It's part of the process.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we'll wait. We'll wait. We'll wait. We're very patient
Yeah.
here at
Well, the
Mandy.
goal, the goal is to, be able to offer people some life-saving resources as a result of finishing this documentary. So my goal, our goal is that, you know, people don't watch just a film. I mean, I feel like this is for every filmmaker, but in
Yeah.
particular, an educational film like this, that people won't just finish it and think, oh, that was a great film, and
Mm-hmm.
then go about their day.
Mm-hmm.
I would ultimately, the goal is for people to watch it and walk away from it and think like, wow, I learned so many things that literally could save lives.
Yeah.
I'm this much more well equipped
Yeah.
to deal with both my own mental health and other people's mental health.
Right.
And I'm no longer afraid to talk about it, or I'm that much less afraid
Yeah.
to talk about it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I have so many questions. What
Yeah, yeah.
in what area of the world do you focus the most, or is it a worldwide initiative, or do you focus in the US primarily? How does it work?
Yeah, so we are almost fully remote. So, except for the things that we do location wise and shooting, or events, things like that, typically we have a team of fully remote people. And I personally really like that. I think the future, as we've
Yeah.
been seeing COVID, is remote.
Hmm.
But also, I feel like in that sense, we can reach out to as many people as possible, and we can keep our overhead low,
Yeah.
so to me, that seems to be the best way to go. And also, who doesn't love, working wherever they want, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so in that sense, yeah, we're fully remote. We can literally serve anyone and everyone in the world. I get a ton of emails and from people all over the world sometimes, like from Turkey, Pakistan, India, South America, England, Australia. And I would say that England and Australia are actually two of our biggest audiences, especially on our social media. We have a lot of people who follow us who are from England and Australia, which is pretty interesting. But our headquarters, like basically where I used to be, and also all the filming where that happens, is in Los Angeles, the film capital of the world, of course. So a lot of it happens there, and we definitely have quite a few people joining us from California. But yeah, we do serve everyone, in the world, but
Hmm.
I would like for that to branch out even more so.
Hmm.
Ultimately, this message needs to get across to every culture,
Hmm.
because mental health is obviously, in every single culture, and suicide too. So.
Absolutely. What are your first steps, let's say, to educating your audiences? I'm sure you don't have a cookie cutter program. You probably have a ton, and they're curated to your different audiences. But in general, as an umbrella, what would be your main pinpoints, your main
Yeah, absolutely.
bullets?
So I really like that you use that word cookie cutter, Marina, because I feel like, yeah, that's actually something that I've said from the very beginning, that I did not want this to be a cookie cutter type of mission or
Yeah,
nonprofit or message,
mm,
because the world of mental health is not cookie cut. It
absolutely.
can be, yeah, it can be very messy, very
Yeah.
unglamorous at times,
Hmm.
and that's okay.
Hmm.
That's okay. And that's a taboo that we're working to break, like real life is not cookie cut.
Hmm.
So I'm really glad that you brought that up. But yeah, so I would say that a lot of the things that we do, so for example, one of the things we're constantly working on is providing educational articles. And a part of the reason why we do that is, number one, that's one of the fast and easiest things for us to do, right? But also, number two, it serves the most amount of people because we put it right there on our website. Everyone in the world can have access to it. We can promote it on our social medias, so that's something that we're constantly working on, is providing educational articles on a variety of mental health topics in what I call layman's terms, so
Yeah.
that everyone can understand it, and it doesn't get too separated from the general public. And then we're also very active on our social media. So definitely, here's my little plug. Definitely follow us on
Yes.
Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, Facebook, all of that. But the reason why is because I know social media has a lot of taboo, I guess, in itself, because it can be mentally damaging, but also, as we are finding out, as we're creating, it can be very mentally uplifting too, and educational. So we utilize our online presence, I think, for the greater good. So we're known on social media for doing our mental health posts, making people feel better about what they're going through,
Yeah.
helping them feel less alone. And then recently, our newest initiative, and I've been telling my team this. We've actually been concentrating a bit more on the educational side of mental health.
Hmm.
So a bit more on, like, what is this diagnosis, what does this mean? And then on top of that, because we do have an influence and an obligation to our society, we've also started talking about, common everyday things around mental health.
Nice.
So for example, attachments. What is attachment styles? What are attachment issues? What are healthy forms of communication? What are unhealthy forms of communication? What are like emotional abuse,
Mm-hmm.
gaslighting, things like that, that we feel
Mm-hmm.
like, you know what, these are things that people go through all the time that are very
Mm-hmm.
effective, affects their mental health a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So why not utilize this platform to better educate society as a whole on how to take care of themselves, and
Mm-hmm.
each other. And I always say, like, not continue the cycle of toxicity and trauma just because we're not aware of it, right? So I really do hope and see that our social media is doing that. Um, and then also we're creating a ton of educational videos as well on our YouTube channel. And the podcast that I'm sure you're aware of. So we
Yes.
have our own podcast. Yeah. So we have our own podcast as well, where we interview people just like you, but we interview a variety of psychologists and therapists, people in the mental health field, and then also people that go through mental health issues themselves. So yeah, those are just a few of the more ongoing remote ways that people can access our
Mm-hmm.
information.
I love it. I will be assured that I will post the links to all of these platforms in the show notes. I follow you everywhere and anywhere, so it'll be
Oh, that's
easy.
great.
It'll be easy to convince everyone at home to do the same. Um, and I am so
Thank you.
fascinated that you're using your social media platforms to spread knowledge and information. I do the same, and Mind Bloom stems from that motivation as well. And I would incorporate into this idea the causes of cyberbullying, for instance, online
Mm,
being, or cyberbullying being such a major cause for suicide in especially younger ages. So it's wonderful, and you can please tell me more about this, but it's wonderful that you're using the same platforms, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, that spread toxicity and trauma, but you are using them to capture these same teens and these same audiences that are at such a high risk of suicide, precisely because they don't know what these terms like gaslighting and these manipulations that exist around them, what they can do to them, and they just, they'll just go on and end their lives. So this is wonderful. So what are
thank
your,
you so much for saying that. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So what are your do you have an age in particular you like to focus on? And also just tagging along, I bet that COVID and the whole pandemic that is now 9, 10 months has also, I mean, you've probably been seeing the effects of isolation everywhere. So
Mhm.
please tell me more. I'm so interested.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so you had two questions or two topics there, one on cyberbullying and the second was on COVID,
Yeah.
and how they relate to mental health. So, fortunately, on our Instagram and social media platforms, just the way that we come across. I would like to think that we have built a community of followers around that. People who genuinely love what we do. They genuinely like appreciate what we're about, and we have seen very little cyberbullying, if any.
Yeah.
Of course, there's controversy, which is not a bad thing. Controversy, I
Yeah.
like to spark, in our slogan, kill, silence, save lives. You can't really do that if you're afraid to talk about stuff, right?
Right.
Um, but the way that people go about it, I have been noticing even myself, even when I comment on it or I read it, I go through it, and I talk to my team, we have meetings all the time, and I tell them what to post sometimes and all that. And it's like, our community is just very supportive, and I'm very blessed about that. And I really feel like, the way that we have structured this, people tend to get, I hope at least, that they get what we're doing. It seems like they get what we're trying to achieve here, and they don't really bully each other. And if they do, I have seen other people stand up for others,
Mm,
on our platforms, and they'll
that's
stand up for
wonderful.
each other. And yeah, and it's great. And sometimes even for us, I mean, not everyone's going to agree with every single post that you do, especially if when you do so many and you've been at this, like, oh gosh, I don't even know how many tens of thousands of posts and
Yeah.
stories that we have by now, right? But not everyone is going to agree with it. But even with us, sometimes, when we post something, even if it gets a little bit controversial, like, we'll see different sides too. Some people
Mm,
will stick up for us
mm,
as well, and then of course, we always invite open communication opinion. Everyone can have their own opinion. But
mm,
as far as the bullying, we don't see it very much. So I'm very happy about that. Um, and yes, you're absolutely right. That is a big uh, cause of adolescent and young children, actually children now,
mm,
committing suicide. Sorry,
mm,
killing themselves is the correct term.
mm.
But yeah, it's unfortunate, and I do hope that we, as a whole in society, will start to put a stop to cyberbullying. But I think that needs to come from the community, and that needs to come from people just being compassionate for each other. And when they see it, they have the power to stop it,
Yeah.
right? They have the power to say, like, no, this is not right. And, you shouldn't be saying this stuff. So anyway, the second question that you brought up, COVID has been very difficult on a lot of people. I'm not gonna lie, it's been really difficult on our nonprofit as well. It really has. And I'm just grateful. I always tell my team this. I'm just grateful to even be here, with you, Marina, today, right now. I'm grateful for that. I think it really makes us, like, the good part is it really makes us appreciative of the little things and take a more mindful approach to how we're living and what we do have in the present moment. But as far as suicide goes, yes, there have been a significant increase in suicides during COVID. It has been unfortunate, and I do think that unfortunately, a lot of it just stems from, I mean, people not getting the help, right? That could possibly, potentially, save them from taking that last resort. And unfortunately, just the way that our system works, currently, in the U.S. at least, like, it's very difficult to access mental health care.
Yeah.
It's too difficult. That's something that we really want to change in the future, and I'm sure every mental health organization feels the same way. But it's really difficult. So especially when you're isolated and you're by yourself and you feel hopeless, how are you even going to know how to do that? Like, where are you even going to go? Who are you even going to talk to?
Yeah.
So again, that's part of our initiative, and what we want to, do in our education too, is show people this is how you get help. This is where you can go now. And I hope that that will significantly increase in the near future. But unfortunately, yes, you're absolutely right, Marina. That has been happening during COVID. And I think we're all looking forward to this whole thing just being over and everyone, being able to get out there again. But yeah, isolation is a huge thing. But I would say even things like this, Zoom calls,
Yeah.
these are great. These are really great to connect to people. Whenever you
Mm-hmm.
can FaceTime someone, especially during times of COVID, do
Mm-hmm.
so. There's something about seeing someone face to face
Mm-hmm.
that actually triggers different responses in our brains
Sure.
and makes us feel better than, say, if you were just to talk to them on the phone. So yeah, so we
Sure.
can, do what we can. Yeah.
Even just the fact of getting ready, comb your hair, put
Oh
some
yeah.
makeup on, just put a shirt on, improves your day and makes you feel, I don't know, useful, I guess, or just in a part of a community, part of something, a project, something, and
Yeah.
it's beneficial for your mental health. I think we all struggled in the beginning a lot with that. I personally did, with not going to work and not knowing exactly what was expected of me, right? It's 8 a.m. Now what do I do with the rest of my day
Mm.
if I don't have to commute and if I don't have to sit in an office for 8 hours, right?
Oh,
Um,
I have a friend. I
yeah.
have a friend who does not work,
Hmm.
and has been. She's a bit more on the cautious, a lot more on the cautious side, so she doesn't even go out. But she tells me that she puts her makeup on
Yeah,
every single day, every single
exactly.
morning. She puts her makeup on,
Yeah.
and she gets dressed
Right.
because it makes her feel better.
Yeah, yep, yep,
So,
yep. Exactly. It really does.
yeah,
It really does. Kudos to her. Do you have by any chance a
yeah.
hotline or
For me,
a,
I just did it for the Zoom thing. So no, so we don't have a hotline. That is not what we're concentrating on. I mean, people have brought that up. So maybe it's something initiative that we can look at in the future. But no, that is not what we do here at Breaking Taboo. We more or less provide the education and the access to resources. So if you go on our page, you will see access. You will see a whole list of resources, including hotlines. And there
mm-hmm,
are multiple hotlines out there,
mm,
by the way, everyone.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Everyone knows of the suicide hotline, but there's actually many hotlines out
mm-hmm.
there. And they're listed on our website in the list of get help resources. So that's what we do, is we provide people with the access and the resources and the education involved in how to get help for themselves and for other people.
Yeah, okay, phenomenal. No, that's great. I was just thinking in terms of you're stuck at home, you don't know what to do. But I guess these days it's so easy to just even contact you on Facebook or Instagram or
Yeah.
Twitter or anything, just shout out and or just holler and go like, help me,
Funny you
help
say
me.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're actually, and this is a little bit hush hush, so I can't talk too much about it, but we're actually in the middle of creating an app.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so that I think will help a lot of this. So I've had this idea for this app for like the longest time, and
Yeah.
and honestly, that's another thing with COVID is like, it's I've
You have
spent
a
all
lot of
my
ideas.
time. Yeah, but well, no, not even that. It's just I can actually implement more of my ideas, because
Hmm.
what am I doing? I'm not
Hmm.
running around
Hmm.
outside. I'm stuck at home. Is like,
Hmm.
focus, 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 right? For better or worse. But
Hmm.
the better part is, yes. So we have finally started on this app, and I do hope, and I will let everyone know when
Hmm.
it comes out, of course, and we'll have a big launch and all that. But
Hmm.
I do hope that it will further help people with exactly what you just said. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, perfect. Because, like you said in the beginning, the remote is here to stay. So people are still probably going to spend a lot of time by themselves at home.
Mhm.
Therefore, the need for an app, a way to communicate, to holler for help, to ask for help. So that
Mhm.
is perfect. And most of us live on our phones anyway. So the
Mhm.
app is perfect, the right way to go. And I would invite you to come along as soon as you have that app out, as soon as you have, again, the documentary out, you're my guest again, and we will spread the word together again.
Well, thank you.
Because suicide, yes, needs to be prevented, needs to be avoided, and people need to be helped and understand
Yeah.
what is going on. Depression um, is something, the void. You get into it, and it's very, very hard to come out. Besides, you don't even know you're in the middle of it, in the thick
Mhm.
of it. Um,
Yeah.
So it's even harder to ask for help because you don't even know what's going on with you, at least from
Mhm.
my personal perspective.
Are you speaking from your
Uh,
personal experiences?
yes, I know depression very intimately.
Mhm.
I haven't in the last few years because, of many treatments and many therapies
Good.
and
Good.
all the things. But yeah, but I know it very well, and I know that it's a matter of days almost. You don't realize that it sneaks up on you, and then it's there to stay. So I think the important in someone who knows they struggle with depression is also to just be aware of the first signs of depression and not
Mhm.
let yourself sink in further. So if you sense those things coming, this darkness, this need to stay in bed, this difficulty in even showering or preparing a meal, lack of appetite or excess of appetite, um, just call someone, just talk with someone. Yeah. So,
You know, I'm so glad that you shared that, Marina.
mm,
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I will share something about myself. I know depression very intimately as well.
yeah,
I definitely know it very intimately, more so in the past when I was an adolescent. So I understand what adolescents go through,
mm,
like to a further extent than someone who hasn't experienced it, obviously. But yeah, obviously, the clinical definition for depression is really only 2 weeks. It's only 2 weeks. Do you experience these symptoms for 2 weeks or longer? When you think about it, 2 weeks is not that long of a time.
wow, yeah,
So I completely get what you're saying, how it sneaks up on you. And then by that time, it's just like a cycle, and it can feel like,
yeah,
people always say, it's interesting, people always tend to say these like feel good cookie cutter, right, type of
yeah,
things, like, oh, just come out of it, or oh,
yeah,
don't worry, like you'll
yeah,
feel better, or oh, just don't worry about it,
mm,
or don't make it such a big deal, or
mm,
that happens in my family a lot too,
mm,
the
mm,
culture, the stigma,
mm,
like the
mm,
just
mm,
misinformation on this type of stuff. And that's just so not how it works. It's just that is like literally the worst thing. you know well,
yeah,
I mean, not literally the worst, but that is just, it's just not helpful, because what it can do is make the person feel even worse about themselves.
absolutely.
And and then they end up blaming themselves, like, oh, why aren't I feeling better, or why can't I just snap out of it, or oh, like, what's wrong with me,
Mm,
so yeah, there are much more beneficial, helpful ways to deal with it that we're trying to educate people on a constant basis as well. But yeah, it's hard when you're there. It just doesn't work that way.
yeah,
You don't see the end of the tunnel.
yeah,
It's just continuous.
mm-hmm,
And it's interesting because I feel like people who haven't gone through it sometimes think of it as this big diagnosis, or just
mm-hmm,
like this disorder,
mm-hmm,
and it doesn't help. And that's part of the reason why I named it Breaking Taboo too, because that only adds to the taboo. Like, oh, there's something wrong with you. There's this disorder. You have this, like, illness. And again, why I don't like using that word so much. You have this, like it just catapults you into thinking there's something wrong with me. Like, I've seen this in my friends that I've lost too. There's something wrong. There's so much shame. There's such a taboo. And I think there's just a lot more helpful ways to go about seeing this topic and talking about it. And the reality is, it's very common, and I always say, depression is, it's like, it starts off being sad, and people can get sad. You're allowed to get sad. You are allowed, you should be allowed to be depressed too.
true.
We can all be allowed to be happy and ecstatic and sad and depressed. And I will say, it's when the shame and the taboo and all of that gets into the mix that it fosters the spiral,
Yeah,
so but yeah, we're human beings, we're going, if we really allow ourselves to live and feel and exist,
yeah,
we're going to feel those feelings.
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
yeah, so there's, in my opinion, there's really nothing wrong with that,
mm-hmm,
and we want
mm-hmm,
people to really realize that and
mm-hmm,
just say, like, okay, you're going through this, here are the steps,
mm-hmm,
this is what you need to do to get help.
mm-hmm,
It's not going to be easy.
mm-hmm,
It'll be easier for some than others, perhaps, but it's not always going to be easy. It's going to be a road, but it's okay. And you're not, like, totally wrong or abnormal for having these feelings.
mm-hmm, exactly.
And look at it this way, a ton of the most great poets and artists of our time, have experienced this. And I have a theory where I think why it's because they allowed themselves to
Mm,
access these really deep feelings that
mhm,
normal people just kind of shut down or are
mhm,
numb to or don't allow themselves to access,
mm,
which is beautiful in the
mhm,
sense,
mhm,
right? Because you're really living. I think it's beautiful, but it's dangerous in the sense too, where you have to just be careful and take care of yourself and, just watch if you
mhm,
get that deep into it. So,
mhm.
but yeah.
Beautiful. I'm so glad we had this moment. Tell me, just to wrap up, what would you say to people at home, especially now in this time of isolation? Also, the holidays are coming up on us, and what would you say? We have a visitor.
Hi,
Oh,
Spirit.
hi,
Say hi.
hi.
She's
Gorgeous.
my little emotional support app too.
I have
I
my
brought.
one too.
Oh, really?
I'll show
Oh
you.
my
This is
gosh.
like, we're gonna edit this part. Let me show you mine.
Oh. Oh my gosh.
Mine's a puppy,
Oh.
Bianca. She's so white, just like yours.
Yeah, what kind of puppy is it?
She's, I think, a sort of Pomeranian and Chihuahua, maybe. I haven't tested her genetically, but
Oh.
oh. She's my emotional support.
Did you just
No, I've had
Yeah,
her for
did you
3 years.
just adopt oh,
I adopted her
okay,
three
because you said
years ago.
puppy, so like
I keep calling her puppy, but she's my puppy, but she's 3 years old now.
so okay, Spirit, you wanna go
Cat
down or
butt.
you gonna sit down? What you gonna do? Here you go. Yeah.
I
You
uh
might just have to do it like this. I
I
actually think
I don't mind.
honestly, like people love seeing animals. Yeah,
I
people
don't
love
mind.
seeing animals, just FYI on podcasts and stuff. It might end up getting you more viewers.
I know,
So
I don't mind at all. Let's just keep on going. It's our emotional support animals. We
okay.
have no shame. Oh. Um,
Nope.
I was just gonna ask you, what are some tips and some last messages you can leave the people at home, especially during this time of isolation and with the holidays coming up as well?
Yeah.
What would you like to say?
Well, I would say one thing that pops in my mind at first is I think it's because of this influence, right? But you know how a lot of people have actually gotten Spirit. I'm sorry. A lot of people have adopted, right, during
Yes,
the pandemic, and I think for a
yes,
reason,
yes.
because we were talking about isolation, we're talking about needing companionship, and we're talking about emotional support. And I think people, that's again one of the good things about this pandemic. And I used to volunteer in the pet shelter for years. For years, I volunteered ever since I was 13, and so many animals just die without homes, and back then there weren't a lot that were no kill, and a lot of them they would just get euthanized, and it's really sad. So I think one of the great things that have happened during this pandemic is that people have um, felt the need and the want and have the
Mhm.
time to adopt these animals. My hope, though, is that after the pandemic's over and they go to work, they're not going to ignore their
Exactly.
duties and being a good animal parent. So I really hope that the shelter doesn't just start seeing like a, because that would be so sad.
Yeah.
So please, everyone out there, if you were lucky enough to adopt a little cutie pie, please do make sure that you treat them like family, because that's really what they
What
are,
they
and you
are.
wouldn't just abandon your family. So speaking of, I think that's a great thing to do if you do, if you are interested and you've always thought of adopting, and you think you can make some time, and the key word is make some time in your schedule. Please do adopt an animal, adopt a furry friend. Like it's
Mm.
great. It makes your life a lot more enriching. um, but on a few more like practical notes for what you can do, with the pandemic and COVID currently right now, especially if you are feeling isolated.
Off she goes.
There she is. Okay. um, Especially if you are feeling isolated, is so like I said before, Zoom calls like this. Reach out to old friends. We all have those old friends we
Mm.
haven't spoken to in so long, and every now and then, we think, I wonder what they're doing. I wonder what
Mm-hmm.
they're up to. And yeah, maybe we can see them on Facebook, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
or it's just Instagram. It's not really a real representation of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So reach out to them. Use this as a great opportunity to reconnect with people that you haven't connected with in a while. And then even your current friends. There's so many people I have not seen since the beginning of the pandemic. It's going to be almost a year now, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to see them for over a year at least. So spend the time, check in on them, because they might be feeling isolated too.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm pretty sure they probably are feeling isolated, so we're all in this together. We're all going through it together, and you have the power to make a difference in other people's lives also, and to do something about communicating with other people. So I would definitely say just make the effort, and reach out to them, have these Zoom calls. The other thing is, and I don't want to sound cliche, but we all have things that we want to do that we don't have time to do, so again, if you're passionate about something, if you always wanted to do it, and I know people are doing this and it's great, but if you're passionate about something, woodwork, or arts and crafts, or you always want to make that birdhouse, or whatever it is, get into it.
Yeah.
Get into it. Order the stuff from Amazon, or go to Michael's if
Yeah.
that's okay with you, and just get into your hobbies and just immerse yourself in it. Play some great music, and give yourself some self-care, light some candles, whatever. Make a whole experience out of it,
Yeah.
and it can be just as great as going out. In fact, even
Absolutely.
better sometimes than going out to a bar and drinking, or so yeah, so really find the things that you have always wanted to dabble in, and use this as a great opportunity to be able to reignite some of your passions, or even find some passions. The other thing is, there's a huge power in writing and journaling. So if you are feeling depressed, if you are feeling stressed out, if you are feeling isolated, or starting to feel hopeless, use that journal that person gave you years ago, or open your laptop and make it a point to every day in the morning just write down your thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
or at night write down gratitude exercises. I'm sure you're familiar with this too, Marina.
Mm-hmm.
Gratitude exercises are huge. And I tell my clients this in my life coaching. I tell them, to write down their assignment is every day, write down 10 things that you are grateful for. Um, and then the next day, try not to repeat. Like, it's okay if you accidentally repeat it, but try not to repeat what you wrote down the day before.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to go more than 10, that's great. Sometimes when
Mm-hmm.
people really get into it,
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden their brain starts going and they come up with like 100 things that they're
Mm-hmm.
grateful for. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really great, And then at the end of every week, read them back.
Mm-hmm.
Just read them back, like read them
Mm-hmm.
out loud. Like, it feels great. I bought this book a while ago, and I'm telling myself I should do this too, because sometimes I forget, but it's called Why I'm Awesome, you know? Yeah. And I realized, because I had to work on one thing I am constantly working on, is giving myself credit. Because I do a lot of things, but I usually just kind of brush it over. And it's a cultural thing too, for me, but you just like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. Oh, whatever, but then ultimately, like, sometimes I go through like, okay, what have I done? What have I accomplished? And, so if I don't remind myself of this, and it's like a confidence boost for me, it's like, it's a feel good mood booster too, but it's literally, why am I awesome? And then I will just list down at the end of the night, things that I, big or small, that makes me awesome,
Mm-hmm.
so I think those are all like really great things, whether pandemic or not, for people to concentrate on, and of course, I know the weather's a little bad right now, but, try to find the beauty in taking those walks in
Mm-hmm.
nature. I know sometimes it can be hard to get yourself out of bed and out in the cold, So try to think of like, okay, what are 5 things that I love about the snow? For example, I'm just saying right now,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
5 things I love about the snow. Oh, it's glittery. It looks beautiful. It's really fluffy. I remember these great memories when I was little and I used to play snowballs. The whole the neighborhood's going to be looking so beautiful right now. And that will get me excited about
Mm-hmm.
doing this thing, about
Mm-hmm.
going out, doing this thing that I know is good for my mental health and my
Mm-hmm.
well-being. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So these are things that I practice also.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are just some off the top of my head.
Right. I mean, wonderful tips. I practice a few of those as well. The
I'm
being
sure, yeah.
grateful, and then it just becomes second nature to you. And I don't
Hmm.
always write them, but I will, throughout my day, I will remember to say it to myself.
Yeah.
In my thoughts, I am so grateful. I just had this interview. I'm so grateful this person just came into my life to speak on Mind Bloom, and so on and so forth. So definitely,
That's
because
beautiful.
it's got to be a change in our mindset as well, right? From just
Hmm.
complaining and being sad or flustered, because that's where
Yeah.
anxiety comes from as well, right? We feel we lost control. So instead of thinking that way, just changing the mindset a little bit. Okay, I've lost control
Hmm.
over the pandemic, obviously, but what can I control? What can I control? I can control the decor of my home to make it
Yeah.
more cozy.
Yeah.
I can
That's
control my meal.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's I was the theory of control is very interesting because yeah, you're right. What can we control? And
Yeah.
even when you said the pandemic, the first thought that I had in my mind as well, we could have controlled a lot better. And now we
Well,
could have, been a little bit more we're back to normal. But, that's just my opinion.
no, yes, but
But
exactly.
you're
Go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, no, but you're right. But ultimately, like, what can we control too? It's like people also want their freedom, and I mean, one of my cat is named Freedom, so it's
Mm-hmm.
like I understand that's always been like a curse and a blessing for me too. I always understand, like, I can always see multiple sides and I can see both perspectives, often
Mm-hmm.
equally. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, but control is a huge part of it. And I would also say, and yeah, it's great to shift your mindset,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to allow ourselves to truly feel the feelings that we feel.
Mm-hmm.
So if something is bothering us, I think one of the things that because I believe in a lot of law of attraction stuff too, and positive thinking, whatever, but I often have a problem with the word positive versus negative,
Mm-hmm.
because what people see as negative is not always negative. It's not always negative to feel these emotions that are, again, like human nature, again, with the depression and whatnot. Like, it's what is negative, per se, is saying like, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this, let me switch my mindset right away.
I
I
see. Yeah.
shouldn't be feeling like pissed off about this thing that really pisses me off. I don't really find that to be the most healthy, especially mentally healthy. I find that what's healthier is to fully accept it, and almost think, like, in a more Buddhist, I guess, mentality, is like accept your suffering, and really, like, understand it, contemplate on it, know what you're going through, and just kind of like, okay, this is what I feel right now. It's just a feeling, and understand that it is your feeling. It's just your feeling. It might feel like it's the whole world right
Yeah.
now, but just, keep saying to yourself, like, it's okay to feel this way, it's okay to feel this way,
Yeah.
and let yourself process it, accept it, and then it'll make it that much easier for you to move forward from it. And then that's when you start to create those mindset shifts.
Mm-hmm.
Only then, I feel like, can you create genuine mindset shifts. And that's my issue a lot with a lot of law of attraction things also, is that they don't, like, that part just gets,
Yeah, I see.
it's like almost like, oh, you're not supposed to do that,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, that's just what I see. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because it even becomes toxic, that positivity. Why aren't you positive? Well,
Yeah.
there we go. It doesn't
So
work
so
that
for
way.
me,
Yeah.
yeah, so for me, I'm like, aren't you genuine?
Uh-huh.
you
Instead, yeah,
know
exactly.
yeah, why aren't you
Exactly.
authentic? Like, be
Exactly.
authentic about your feelings. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
can see that you are feeling
Mm-hmm.
upset about this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
one of the worst things you could do is like, oh no, I'm fine, everything's fine,
Mm-hmm.
and then you bottle it up and you
Mm-hmm.
put it in this little container, and it's gonna
Mm-hmm.
combust at some point.
It will.
So, mhm.
Yeah. Serena, I thank you so, so much. This was so engaging and so
Thank you, Marina.
educational. I learned so much. And
I'm
I
glad.
I look forward to having you again. I look forward to seeing the progress of Breaking Taboo. Um,
Thank
you
you.
you are doing an amazing job, incredible job.
Thank you so much, Marina, and I appreciate so much that you had me on your show. I'm so grateful for this opportunity to have this amazing conversation, and this will definitely brighten up my day. And yeah, and just thank you so much. I think you're doing a wonderful thing too, also with Mind Bloom. And again, I love that name, Mind Bloom. It's just
Thank
so
you.
great. Yeah, and I look forward to seeing you in our community.
Absolutely.